I am starting the reassembly part of this job. This part gets really technical. You can see all of these part numbers here. I called up the dealership and got the part numbers and everything for all the parts that I knew I was going to need. I asked the dealership what they charged. This is what they charged at the time. I asked them what they would charge for the job, and they said, you know, this much before tax. It's about, I don't know, 2-week job is what they told me, plus 170 diag. So it's not a cheap job, but anyways, I'm starting with the Audi timing chain cover. That's the part for the cover, part number. This is the part number for the bolts. I have 6 of them, and I have it right here. You can see I got my new part on there. I'm going to bolt this down. The torquing spec is 9 Newton meters. The repair manual does not give a torquing sequence, so I'm just going to do a crisscross pattern like this one, this one, this one, this one, that one, and then that one. And that's pretty much how I always do it if I can't get a hold of a torque sequence, or if there just isn't one for whatever reason, like this job. One thing I would definitely recommend double checking these part numbers before you go and start buying parts, just to make sure that these part numbers go for your VIN number. One important thing about this job is there are 2 versions of this sealing flange. One version has this piece attached to it. This is where like the tensioner pulley sits, and then the other version does not. It's a separate part. My version obviously has it, so there is that. Another thing too, mine has aluminum bolts. There's a version with aluminum bolts, and there's a version with steel bolts. The way I know what's aluminum is I got my magnet, and it does not do anything. See that? My magnet does not pick these up. I got these steel bolts over here. See that? So my version is the aluminum bolts. I got this part all torqued on there. Now I need to put on this gasket for the sealing flange. This one is the kind without an aluminum backing. It's just a bunch of rubber. The other type, it looks to be the same shape as this one, but it just has an aluminum backing. And you just get whatever one was on the car originally. Now, looks like for the, let's see this, timing cover. Pretty sure this part number is going to get you timing cover gasket. Not in stock. Okay. Pretty sure this part number is going to get you the one that I have, the one without the aluminum backing. I have this gasket all installed and ready to go. It's got a bunch of these tabs here, you can see. It's got tabs on both sides. We got a bunch of them here. Here and here too. What you got to do, you got to get a pick and you got to press those in. You got to make sure you're not poking the actual rubber, because you'll poke a hole in that and it won't seal. So just go around the whole perimeter of it and just make sure everything is sealing up properly and that all the tabs are pressed in there. And this took me a second. Another thing, you got these areas here and here. You can actually put silicone on here, and it's gonna go right here. See how we got this part separation? You got the cast iron block, and then you got this aluminum part right there. The silicone is gonna seal up right there on both sides, and that's how that works. I am all ready to install my front sealing flange. I got my 22 bolts lined up. These are the part numbers for the bolts. Mine are the aluminum ones. Right, let's see. Front timing cover gasket. Okay, right there. I called it a front timing cover when I wrote this down. The timing's on the back of the engine. It's a front sealing flange. It's kind of weird. The water pump just so happens to use the exact same bolt part numbers. One thing about this torquing sequence, I'm not going to be able to show you how to do this step because it's just way too complicated. there's way too much going on, you're going to have to get yourself a repair manual. The repair manual, I found one online for free. You can buy one from the AllData website for about $30 to $40. You can choose whichever one you want to do. I'll provide some information for you to find that free resource. This is the website where I got the user manual on. You basically click this link here. Do that. Okay. So what this thing is here, it's a repair manual for a whole bunch of these Volkswagen Touaregs. Basically, you figure out which one applies to your exact Touareg, and then you just download it from here. More likely than not, you're going to be downloading the link that I have selected there. This is the one I downloaded. This repair manual applies to the Volkswagen Touareg TDIs between the year ranges 2010 through 2015. Okay, so I'm torquing this thing down, and this part, the brand new part, pinched on that O-ring. I cannot use it like this. I got to take it apart and fix that. The dowel pins, somehow you got to get this thing on perfectly flat, and I guess this thing wasn't flat enough, and it did that. The instructions say to tighten this one first, and I was doing that. I had some of these in here, and that's probably what messed it up. So that was pretty unfortunate. I had to clean the silicone off of these. Also with the engine, got those cleaned out. I guess I'll show you where I'm looking here and here. And then this is the actual O-ring, see that? It broke it. I just hope I can get one of these in town. And then I need to check to make sure that the plastic didn't break. I don't think it did. I think it was just the O-ring. Just split it in half. That was really sad. I got a new O-ring for this part that broke. That's the part number right there. I got two of them just in case. I put the O-ring on there. I put this in place. The instructions say to tighten this down first. You got to be really careful. See how we got a gap there? It's not all the way pressed on there. This hose is a little bit annoying. It kind of fights you. You got to stick it in as you're making it flat, as flat as you can. So at this point, I'm just going to tighten this down slowly while trying to wiggle this in evenly. I'm going to keep a really close eye on that O-ring right there. Make sure that doesn't clip again. So I got this thing in place. You can see everything's in. My O-ring did not get clipped that time. It's bottomed out, it's flat. Right now would be a good time to just check everything, make sure that the gasket didn't fall out of position or anything like that. It's easier to address it now than it is after you've put it back together and you find a leak. So you just check the entire perimeter as best you can. The pulley's getting in the way. And everything looks good on here. The way that I ended up doing this was I got a rubber mallet and I tapped it in place. You got to be careful because you can knock off that gasket on the other side of this off if you hit this too hard. You mostly want to focus on the dial pins. You can see that. See, there's a dial pin right there. There's a dowel pin on the other side right there. See that? That middle hole is a dowel pin. Middle holds the dowel pin. Basically, that's what makes this thing so hard to flatten on there. You gotta tap it on right there, get the dowel pins, and then you gotta hit it like right here. You gotta do it really carefully, make sure that's going in perfectly straight. I basically, you know, I kind of like tapped here, made sure that was good. Tapped down here, made sure that was good. Tapped down here, tapped right here, that was a good place to tap. You gotta be really, really careful not to knock this sensor while you're, or whatever, I don't even know what that is. But you have to be careful not to knock this while you're tapping. You'll break that. But yeah, I got this thing all in there. Now I can tighten this part down. This step is a little bit technical. I recommend printing out a procedure because depending on which one you have, whether it be the flange with this or the flange without it, or whether you have the steel bolts or aluminum bolts. I obviously have the aluminum. When I get my, you know, magnet, it doesn't lift up. These are the aluminum bolts. So the procedure that I'm about to follow, it only applies to you if you have this flange and these aluminum bolts. If you have the steel bolts, it's not going to work for you. You got to follow a different procedure. I'm pretty sure that this is going to be the same if you have the aluminum bolts and you don't have that part. But I don't know. Either way, I do recommend getting that procedure and just have it printed out in front of you so you can do it yourself while watching this video. That's going to be the very best. But anyways, step number one is to tighten this down. I'm going to grab my torque specs. I'm going to get those all ready. This first torque spec is 23 Newton meters. Before I forget, I'm going to put this hose clamp right there. You do not want to forget about that. I've torqued down this bolt. Now I'm doing the next torquing step. This part is interesting. So I have aluminum bolts, but it tells me to use 3 mx times 20 bolts. Torque those to 9 Newton meters. What I've done is the bolts that go to this, you're supposed to replace these bolts. There's 6 of them, I believe. I've replaced them. These are brand new bolts. I'm using my old bolts for those MX20 steel bolts. And so I put the first one in there. You can see that. The one right underneath that dowel pin. And then I put the other one right there underneath the dowel pin. And then this one right here. You can see that position. You torque these down to 9 Newton meters. And then, let's see what order. Okay, I see. You do this one first, 9 Newton meters. This one, 9 Newton meters. And then this one, 9 Newton meters. And then eventually, as soon as I torque everything else, I'm going to pull these out and put the actual aluminum bolts in. I have those 3 steel bolts torqued down to 9 Newton meters. This gasket thing actually bottomed out a little bit more, as you would expect. I'm doing another check, just looking around, making sure it's flat everywhere. If the gasket were to be pinched right now, you would see it. It wouldn't be sitting exactly flat. Yeah, you can see that right there. That's that silicone I was telling you about. You got to put that there. It's on this side as well. Yep. Let's see. I don't see it I don't see the flange sitting odd anywhere. So we should be good. We'll go on to the next torquing step. Okay. Next it tells me to insert the temperature regulator for the engine oil cooler. That's that piece right there. I already had it in. Just stick it in there. I already had it in. What else? Okay. So this part is unfortunate. They gave me the wrong part. See this? This is my old part. This is the new part. Hold on. It looks very, very similar. The only difference is the end. See how long that end is? Right there. Between the O-ring and the end of the part. And then this is my part. It's shorter. I believe the O-ring is also a different size. I think this is like a slightly different diameter. So I don't think you could just swap out the O-ring and call it good. I'm gonna have to go to the dealership and tell them my parts are different. Apparently, there's a code on the block somewhere where you can tell them which block you have, and then they will know which part's gonna be yours, whether it be this one with the shorter tip or this one with the longer one. The part numbers are almost the same. The only difference is this has a D. See this part number 059 115 185D. This part number, it's the same, but it's a C at the end. So the part number is going to be 059 115 185C for this one. So that's really dumb.